Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're almost at 6:30, so we're just going to give everyone one more minute to join the meeting, and then we'll get started. But we wanted to let you guys into the waiting room. Thank you for coming early, and we're very excited about the presentation tonight. So just bear with us for one more moment as more people join. Thank you. Okay, and we are right on 6:30. So once again, thank you everyone for coming to this very special webinar in our educational series. My name is Selena Archer, and I work along with the Teachers and Salaried Workers Cooperative Credit Union Limited, and I assist the business development team with marketing initiatives such as this one. And this evening, we are very excited to have a representative from our new credit bureau, CRIF, who will be giving us a brief history and understanding of the credit bureau's role, as well as outlining our rights as consumers and giving us information on accessing our credit reports. And just before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping notes. You will notice that this meeting is being recorded, and that is so that we can continue our member information and education. So that will be sent out via email to all of our members, as well as housed on our YouTube channel. We will also have links if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram and want to share this information with friends and family. We will have links that will be put up there early next week so that you can share the webinar as well. So because it is being recorded, we want everyone to remember that once you are speaking at the end of the session, if you're asking a question, that you will be on screen. So if you want to turn the camera off so nobody sees your background, that's perfectly fine. We do ask that throughout the session, as we have our presenter, that everyone keep their mics muted. This is so that we can all hear what is being said. You may ask questions during the chat or in the chat box if you'd like. And again, at the end, we will have a question and answer session so that we will get all of those questions in to our presenter. If you are receiving inappropriate messages from anyone in this room, please private message me. You'll see the logo for the credit union there. You can just send me a private message and we will deal with that. Your safety is our priority. Now that we have all of our housekeeping notes covered, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Marissa Nixon, who is our new credit bureau presenter this evening. Ms. Nixon, please come in and tell us a little bit more about yourself and also about the new credit bureau.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight just to share a little bit more insight on the credit bureau. So just a little insight about myself. I have more than 15 years in the finance sector and probably more than 7 years in tourism. And the business sector in itself. I've worked both internationally in Europe, also in the United States, where I've worked in either finance or tourism. I have an MSc in management. I also recently completed my international AML certification with the ICA. I'm also a participating member of the International Compliance Association. And I love to assist with any purposes that give back to the country in itself. Some of those things that I'm a part of are Hands for Hunger, another organization. Well, I work with organizations that help young mothers also. So I've worked with PACE, presented also to many Rotary, the different sectors of Rotary, and an aspiring soon to be hopeful member of Rotary. And that's just a little bit about myself. If you want me to begin the presentation, I can continue.
Please do, thank you.
Okay, so I am just going to share my screen, seeing that our time is limited. I'm going to go through the most important parts of the presentation, as she would have shared with you earlier. And just confirm with me that you can see the screen, and then I will just begin.
We can, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just to give you a little bit more about CRIF and our background in itself, we are a global company and we specialize in development and the management of credit bureau services, business information services, and credit solutions. We were established in 1988 in Bologna, Italy. CRIF has an international presence operating in over 4 continents: Europe, America, Africa, and Asia. CRIF has always paid the utmost attention to and invested in quality and security, and they are the fundamental components to its mission and integral part of its values and corporate culture. The basic I can say about CRIF right now is that we are newly established here in the Bahamas. As many of you would know, the laws would have passed in 2018 to establish a credit bureau. However, due to delays and also COVID, we actually did not begin the office until April 2021. So we do have a standalone office in the Bahamas, in the Western area. We are in the Manx Corporate Center currently, where we operate from. In itself, to give you a nutshell about the establishment of the Credit Bureau, the IMF and the World Bank recommended the Credit Bureau be established in the Bahamas. This happened about some 20 years ago. After this was recommended, discussions would have occurred between the central bank and the IMF and the World Bank. In 2014, Wendy Craig, the former governor, would have written the laws and basically the rules and regulations for a credit bureau to be established here. Still, again, like I said, we were not established until 2020, although the act was established in 2018. Provision of the framework for the credit bureau in itself basically came from the governing bodies of the central bank. Provision for management of consumer information was also written in those laws, and CRIF was chosen and licensed, again, as I said, a few years. The oversight and regulation procedure. So the central bank basically supervises the credit bureau. We follow the guidelines and the laws of the central bank. They can revoke or suspend our license at any time, and we must preserve the confidentiality of any information obtained through audits or inspections. So we still will have to go through audits and inspections, although we're established here because we are a standalone private company. So use of the Credit Bureau. Basically, according to the Credit Reporting Act, it's set without the consent of a subject, and this means that you would have to have a signed agreement from the consumer. We cannot obtain a credit report, and that is the same for the institution pulling the credit report. So they will not be able to access anyone's credit without having signed consent. And there are laws protecting the consumer to ensure that information is not accessed without their permission. This is one of the, I would say, laws we hold in highest regard, due to the fact that we definitely want to protect the consumer's privacy, and also all of the laws surrounding it comes from the Privacy and Data Act. New credit application portfolio monitoring. So basically, the consideration of an application for credit on offer to act as a guarantor or application for credit, use in connection with business or credit transaction involving the data subject, periodic portfolio monitoring and risk assessment purposes, underwriting of insurance involving the data subject. These are ways information providers will have access to that credit. So these are the different ways they will access this credit. So in application of credit, business credit, transactions, portfolio monitoring, risk assessments, and insurance underwriting, purchase of collection of debt, entry or renewal of tenancy. These things have not been written into the Act as yet, but these are in provision to be written into the Act, and pre-employment checks of the data subject. So the mission in itself for CRIF is basically to create new opportunities for consumers and businesses, providing reliable information and solutions, allowing powerful decisions, and accelerating digital innovation. CRIF is committed to financial inclusion because now we are offering the opportunity for all to have access to credit through now including, soon we will have the money lenders on, we will have the utility companies on. So for persons who do not have access to credit, this will now open up the doors to allow financial inclusion for everyone who does not have access to credit. CRIF at a glance. So this just gives you a broad glance of our company in itself, the different countries we are based in. The country right now closest to us where we hold our database is Jamaica. So what is a credit bureau? A credit bureau in itself, we are a credit information warehouse. We hold repository of information of your payment history, and we collect information about you, and this creates a score. How do we function? Whenever you apply for a loan, whenever you apply for a line of credit, lenders want to know how you will repay and what are the chances that you are going to repay this money. So this basically gives lenders a little bit more information, well, not a little bit, basically all of your credit history to say how you'd be able to finance that loan. The credit bureau responsibilities. So we are responsible for processing the information that we would receive from the information warehouses that we call providers to perform the pre-check of files that are being sent to us and basically check this information and verify that the information is correct. We are also responsible to inform the providers, meaning the institutions, financial institutions, utility companies, of any inconsistency or wrong value of the information that would have been received. And they are also responsible for correcting that information. Credit information providers' duties. And this means, again, the institutions, the utility companies, financial institution, money lenders. So they are to take reasonable measures to satisfy themselves that the consumer information that they send to us is reliable, accurate, and current. We say this because we only report what we receive. This is the only thing that we report. We only show on that report what we receive. They are also responsible to inform the consumers of the name and address of the credit bureau from which their information is being obtained. That is very important. We have a lot of consumers now that go into the institutions and they are not aware of the process. For example, if something is incorrect on the report, they're not informed that they can file a dispute with us so that that information can be corrected. So anything on that report that is not correct can be corrected. And you have 5 working days, basically. The institution has 5 working days to discover that inaccurate information, or if we present it to them, to replace it with accurate information. So the credit information. Legislation provides for mandatory and non-mandatory data providers. And the data providers, again, as I said, are the mandated now data providers, domestic commercial banks, insurance companies, financial corporate service providers, credit unions, Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, Bahamas Development Bank. The utility companies are now also, it is also mandatory for them also. It's not just by designation. So they've already now made it mandatory for all of the utility companies and all of the money lenders. The hire purchase entities, they are not on board as yet. The public registries, they are not on board as yet, but we are actually working to have them on board. They will include the Supreme Court, National Insurance Board, the Department of Inland Revenue. So this just gives you a little bit more idea of how the credit bureau works, because this is basically a country project in itself. We need everybody to work along with us to ensure that this information is actually stored correctly, that we're doing the right thing. We want to make sure that we are on the right track economically, financially. So it's a country project. So this is why we say it's based on the consumers, it's political, it's based on the banking community, it's a culture in itself. Companies working along with us for us to retrieve this information so that we can report it efficiently. The financial market associations that we work along with, we present to many different associations, and of course security, and then of course everything is surrounded by the regulations. Our contracts follow the regulations. All of our laws we abide by are through the regulations. So just to give you a little bit more information regarding data security. With data security, we ensure that your information in itself is protected. And this just gives you a big overview of us securing that data for you. As mentioned before, our database is in Jamaica. That is where our head office is for the Caribbean. However, we still have branches out in Italy. So my staff actually extends from Italy, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. So we have staff in all three regions that work along with us. To secure this data in this database, we ensure that we do not share this information with any third party. We would have to receive information from a provider that has been mandated through the central bank for them to receive information on you. And that would be the only information that we report. We always stress to the information providers, meaning the financial institutions, garbage in, garbage out. And we do that because the credit report requires this information on the consumers. So this is a little bit more information that is required on the consumer to be presented so that we can actually analyze this information in the system. So we require your first name, last name, middle name. So the basic subject information, details and history of payments. So credit, contract, start date, loan date, credit limit, your frequency, inquiries, list of credit applications made by the customer, the link between the subject and contract, subject and company. So just to let you know, if you own your own company, it will also be reported if you are one of the sole owners, whether the company is a limited company, incorporated company or not. This will also impact your credit. If you sign on a loan with someone else, this will also impact your credit. So this is how the credit report looks. So this gives you just a basic idea of how that report will look. It actually is a duplication of it. It is basically similar. So as you can see, just as I said, it shows the person's name, address, it gives you date of birth, it says where you previously worked, your telephone number, your passport number, where you lived previously. So we record basically all of the person's data so that we can ensure that when we are analyzing that data, that it's a true match to the person. This is also some of the information just to show how the contract details will show up. So this is the loan information. So this shows just a basic generic consumer loan. It shows whether the person paid on time or if they were to pay late. This example only shows paid as agreed. So this person has paid all of their debt on time. Also, gives the credit limit. It also gives the credit balance. However, the report that is given to the institutions will not say the institution where you have that loan. Through the through the Privacy Act, we are only allowed to share with the provider, meaning the financial institution or the utility company, that you have a loan, the amount of the extension of the loan, and how long you've had the loan for, and if you've paid on time with your credit score. However, a consumer can request a credit report directly from us that will show all of that information. So it will show where you bank, the different banks that you bank with, if a loan was terminated. A lot of people forget about loans that they might have signed as a co-borrower with somebody. This here shows another section of the credit report, and this just gives you a little idea of what would come up. This person renounced the loan, meaning that they would have gone into the bank, decided to apply for a loan, and then decided that they didn't want to go forward with it. So that is what renounce means. And with the credit card revolving, they requested the loan. It's showing that they requested a loan. So if you go into a bank or a financial institution, a utility company, and you request services, it will still show. It won't show where you requested that service, but it will give that information to whomever you have given permission to access your credit. This is just basically an outline of the credit score. So this credit score ranges from 239 to 552. 239 being the lowest the score could be, and 552 being the highest. You do not want to be in the 239 realm, or should I say the J realm? So it also gives you a letter score, A, B, C to J. You don't want to be in that J because you'd be extremely high risk. You want to make sure that you stay between the tranche of medium risk, which is E, goes straight down to A. So E, D, C, B, or A. These are the only letters that you want to ensure you have on that credit score to assure that you have a good working credit score. But always remember, the information can always be amended or adjusted. We hold the information that is on a credit report that we use for a score for a maximum of 5 years. So because we are now using the information for loans that are active as of 2018 April per the Credit Act to current, this information will not change or be knocked off of your credit score until 2024. So risk assessment and key factors. So this is basically how we come to the risk assessment that gives us the score for your report. So extension of credit, like I would have said before. So basically the amount of credit that you have. So if you're only allowed, if you apply for credit and the maximum you can get is 50,000, and if you've extended it to that maximum of 50,000, then your score, this does impact your score because it means that you're a little bit risky client if you're now going in to apply for more credit. Linked. As I said again, be careful of who you sign up with for as a co-borrower on a loan, because this can also impact your credit. Behavior. So your payment history, your historical data. If you had a long-term loan compared to a customer with a short-term loan, all of this impacts your score. Liquidity risk. Next payment date and amount give information about how much money the customer will need to pay in the next upcoming period. So basically the same thing I said, based on the extension of credit, we want to know how much of a risk you are by offering you more credit. Potential exposure of a customer. So for non-installment and credit card, this is the credit limit. How much more can the consumer draw? So again, it goes back to the extension. And the number of requests also gives you too much exposure. So you don't want to, a lot of people shop around at different institutions. You can shop around, but when you shop around for a loan, we ask you to come into the credit bureau, request your credit report, a free credit report, because you are entitled to one per year, and then present it to the financial institution for them to check to see if you qualify before they run the application. If you know that you're going to go to 5 or 10 different institutions to check to see what the interest rate is. Are the payments better? Is the length of time for the loan? You definitely want to not have applications going into 5 to 10 institutions, because this will impact your score. Negative information, so defaults on payments, of course, this also impacts your score. So benefits for the financial system, of course, it reduces delinquency and instability, reduces the risk of financial crisis. It gives the financial institution access to more clients. They can now probably recommend to you that you can combine your loans, write off the other ones, bring them over to their institution, and it improves fairness and efficiency. As I said, it will give access to credit for persons who wouldn't have credit now. Benefits for the lenders, customers' portfolio growth, postpaid offering expansion, fraud prevention, reduction of operational cost delinquency, improvement on data quality, and benefits for the consumers, which is most important. Social inclusion and credit access for the unbanked, again, more precise credit evaluation, because if you have a high score now, you should be able to bargain for that lower interest rate. Better services, because all of the information is there. You wouldn't have to wait for the longer period of time if the bank is inquiring into the other financial institutions to find out, have you paid this loan on time? All of that information will be there in the report. A lower need for collateral, because now it's showing a true credit history and what you can repay. So all of this gives you better credit possibilities and possibly better rates, as I said again, and the reduced over indebtedness. So that is basically all I have today to share with you. I wanted to make sure I cover the basic factors of the Credit Bureau. So if anyone has any questions, I ask for you to share. And in the chat, I'm going to include our website where you can actually go to apply for your credit report. And as I said again, you're allowed one free report per year.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nixon. We do have a few questions that have been populated in the chat, both privately and publicly, so I will read them out to you for an answer. And to everyone who is attending, if you'd like to ask a question during this time, we just ask that you raise your virtual hand. If you cannot raise your virtual hand after a question has been asked and answered, if you'd like to unmute and ask a question, that is also fine. So the first question that we have is, how far back does the credit history for a consumer currently go?
I mentioned it in the presentation, but for everyone, it goes back from 2018, so April 2018 to current. So let me be a little bit more specific about that. If you've had a loan in 2010, and that loan is still active as of April 2018, that would be reported to the Credit Bureau. If you've had a loan that was written off in 2020, it will be on your credit report and it will impact your score.
Thank you so much. I think you might have answered this, but I'm going to ask anyway. We did have some people that did join us a little later. Will lenders require that I sign a form to get a credit report when applying for a loan?
Yes. Some lenders may have it set up digitally because I know a lot of organizations are now changing their services. But yes, you will be required to sign. They have to have your permission before they can access your credit.
Thank you. And when can a past due date be erased from your file once you pay the loan up to date?
That will not be erased from the history of the report, even if you've paid it off. That will remain on the report until, as I said, we record the 5 years of data. So that turnover period will now not be until 2024, when 2018 information will be knocked off.
Thank you. And then we have another question in the private chat. I have a credit card, not with us. We did check this so that we could offer some support. I have a credit card with a bank that has a standing order for payment. However, I pay the outstanding balance as seen on the bill online, not on the statement, which is always more before the due payment date. Yet the funds are deducted from my account as if I have, for my account is if I have a balance. I am constantly speaking to the bank about this. What will this affect? Sorry, what effect will this have on my credit score?
If your loan is being automatically deducted from your salary at a certain time, you want to either rearrange for your employer to change that date for that deduction, or you want to arrange with the bank to change the due date on your loan. You can have that information change once you sit with your personal banker.
Thank you so much. And to the person that asked the question, I just want to mention that we also have credit cards. There is a question Mrs. Rodriguez wants to ask. Do you want to come in, Mrs. Rodriguez?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, I guess I was typing too slow. Are records ever purged? I did hear that you said if you had a loan in 2010 or 2020, the history will always remain with the credit bureau. I remembered something being called, it's not the write-off, where there's a law for something to be purged at a certain period. If you have a loan, a bad loan, whether a consumer loan, definitely not a mortgage, maybe a credit card or consumer loan. Are records ever purged, or is the loan history with the credit bureau always?
No. The information, of course, is stored. However, like I said, after 5 years of that data, 2018 will be no more. So that'll be as of 2024. So for example, if you paid off your loan April 2018 or December 2018, January 2024, that loan that might have been recorded to help give us an analysis of your score, it will now drop off of our records, because we won't be using it anymore to help us analyze your payment history for a score. And just to be a little bit more specific, every 2 years, you have an opportunity to change your credit history. So even though we analyze the 5 years, the current 2 years, so from 2020 to 2022 would be where we truly give a higher rating or higher score based on your payment history to show how you would have paid that loan back.
Okay, how do you gather your information?
We gather our
source. What's the source of your information? Yes.
Can you repeat that again for me? I apologize.
Okay, I guess the question is, what is the source of your information gathered on customers?
We gather our information from mandated institutions. So any institution that would have been mandated by the central bank. Those, like I said, again, those institutions right now fall underneath, I'll just name the legislators, the Insurance Commission, IRCA, Utilities Regulation Commission, the private entities right now, Securities Commission. We do have, like I said, the judicial system will come on later on. Internal revenue is something that's being worked on. National insurance is something else that's being worked on. So we gather our information directly from all financial institutions. It is submitted to us by encrypted files. We upload this information into our system to produce the analysis of which we then give a score.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So you're saying it's accurate since it's provided by these so-called financial institution, correct?
It should be accurate because we only report what we receive. However, like I mentioned, we do sometimes have disputes, because I'll give a perfect example. If someone's name is spelled incorrectly or your date of birth goes in as May 1st, 1980, and it should be January 5th, 1980, these are man-made errors. Once the customer files the dispute and it is recognized, we then have that information corrected and resubmitted to us. These are simple errors that can happen. We've had other errors that have happened that I guess are a little bit more serious. But we do have dispute teams set up at every institution that we work along with. So we work directly with the dispute team, with our dispute team, so that we can rectify the information to ensure the information is corrected right away.
Okay, one last question. I've seen this very common in the bank, where you have persons that work for government, which is a very straight salary deduction, yet they would have a very poor history due to, I guess, the cycle not being regulated. What do you do for those that the bank has not, or I wouldn't say refused to, maybe they have not gotten around to correcting those errors?
In regards to when the payments come out?
Yes, for example, a day salary deduction, but the bank put one date and your salary is another date. And therefore you have a collision of where the customer's supposed to pay one date based on their payment, and the bank give them another date, so they're seen as late payment.
As I said again, usually now, because the credit bureau is now in place, I think that the bank is giving more leeway, I would say, for the consumer. So like I said again, you definitely want to find out who your personal banker is. Make sure you speak to that person, let them know what your issues are, because you want to ensure that your payments are made on time. The bank also has forgiveness days that we have actually asked banks to place into the system. So for example, if you're paying a mortgage and the bank has 10 business days before they regard that payment as late, we've asked them to add that in to the payment history, because if the bank reports to us that your loan is due on the 30th, it will appear on our report if you pay it on the 10th of the following month as 10 days late. So the bank has to place those forgiveness rules in when they're submitting that data. Once that information is submitted, it's reported as a regular payment on time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry. Can she, see, because that's another implication on our books. If you put in forgiveness days and our delinquency reporting is a different thing, it's going to skew our delinquency reports.
No. Maybe let me repeat that again. The bank would have to place in those forgiveness days if they have forgiveness days, not us as a credit bureau. If the bank tells us that, yes, this person has paid that loan on time, once that dispute has been made, we will let them know based on the reporting, we showed that the person was late this amount of days. So the bank has the authority to correct that on that person's end. Once that dispute is filed, we correct that in our system, and we would then present them with a new credit report showing that they have paid their loan on time. It is up to the financial institution, the utility company. It is not something we report automatically. If the person disputes it and the bank says that, yes, this person has paid on time, then we would make the amendment.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. We also have Chanel Johnson. Chanel Johnson, would you like to unmute your mic and you can ask your question? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So here's the scenario, and this is a scenario personal to me. I have a mortgage with a bank, and according to that bank, I'm at their 45% TDSR threshold. I needed a vehicle, and the credit union has more lenient standards when it comes to your TDSR. So my mortgage company does not know that I have this loan with the credit union. The credit union knows that I have my mortgage. So now when the credit bureau reports on my status, the banking institution is now aware that I have this loan with the credit union. How does that affect my credit score? How does that affect me?
Yeah, yes. Any data that might have been I'll give example, because we do have persons who have mortgages with insurance companies. That because we have just recently completed the process with the legislator to bring on the insurance companies, those mortgages would not have been reported as yet. Once that information is sent into us, it will be a part of the analysis for your credit score.
So how does that affect my ability in the future to get credit extended to me? Does the credit union still, are they now on this, because everybody's reporting into the credit bureau, are they now going to have to follow the 45% TDSR, or can I still?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Sorry about that. Just to let you know, the last say remains with the financial institution. We provide the information so that they can know how you've paid your payment history, your score, and give them a little bit more information about the extensions that you've received. However, they can still make a decision on a person and give a loan, even if your score, your rating with that bank is low. Because you've paid with them on time, they may decide to still give you the loan.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
And one more question, please. If as a consumer, I refuse the bank to access to my credit information, is the likelihood that I will not be granted a credit facility?
It's a possibility because right now, this is something that has been regulated. The central bank has not, I think, created any fines or done anything to the next level as yet because it is new. However, this is something that is regulated, and it will be regulated for any institution, any company that extends any type of credit. So this is even going to the furniture stores. They are also required to report to us. So
Okay.
yeah.
And one last question, sorry. I understand that utility companies will now be reporting in to the credit bureau.
Yes.
Well, in the future. So this means now that persons that are landlords who may have, say they have the light in their name, but they just give their tenant the bill, this would not be in their best interest anymore.
No, it would be in your interest to probably have that meter turned over to the person, unless it's different ways you could work around that. Might be in a landlord too. You could include an average amount of electricity bill in the rent to ensure that you do pay it. Because I know some people don't have separate meters. So to ensure that it's paid, so I would rent my place including the utilities, but only covered to a certain amount. So if you go over this amount, then I would present you with a bill.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a question from the chat, and I will call on the hands that are raised in just a moment. I want to just be fair to everyone. So there were some questions in the chat that came in. So how do you improve your credit score? How often can it happen?
The best way to improve your credit score is to be aware of your financial situation. If you've had any prior loans, you might have signed with anyone for a loan prior. You want to make sure that that relationship, if you were not the sole person on that loan, that this person was paying this loan on time. The best way to do it is actually come into us, get that free credit report, and see what has been reported on you. If there are any errors, if there's anything that you can correct at this time, go through contacting your bank, ask us to assist you with reading through the report